Hello and welcome to Love Capsule, the confessions you won't hear anywhere else.
Today, we're opening the capsule with a very special guest, Ben, whom we met on Love is Blind France.
I'm so happy you're here, Ben. We went through this adventure together, and today you'll be able to tell us a little more about it.
On today's topic, the three behaviors that make a man run away. So, first of all, thank you for being with us, Ben.
Thank you for the invitation. Honestly, it's always a pleasure to see you again in such a nice setting. It's pure happiness.
Could you tell us a little about yourself, introduce yourself?
So, my name is Ben. I'm turning 35 this year. As for my background, I've already done quite a lot of things. I've had 1,000 lives. I worked as a chef for a while. I worked with fruits and vegetables. I also did watchmaking and high-end design. I've also lived quite a bit abroad in Canada, in Asia, in Bangkok. So I've worked in a lot of different industries and on various topics because honestly, I'm really a jack of all trades. As soon as I've gone around a subject, so to speak, I need to move on to the next one. So right now, I'm actually in the process of changing again. I'm going into corporate finance to help entrepreneurs find funding because let's be honest, that's the lifeblood when you're trying to grow. So basically, I'm going to become a plumber, but not with water, with financial flows, you know? It's,
So cool.
yeah. Honestly, it's a great project and it's a skill I don't have yet. So it'll be cool to add it.
Very cool. Evan, can you tell us a bit about why you ended up in this experience and how you felt about it?
Yes, of course. It wasn't part of my plan at all. It really happened by chance. That is, someone reached out to me. It happened on Tinder. I had just barely joined the platform since I had never been on it before. After about a month and a half, someone added me and offered me the chance to take part in a casting. Since I had never done anything like that, I thought, go check it out. I'm curious. So I automatically said yes. And then I eventually realized it was for this show, even though they didn't reveal it right away. So I didn't know it. I really didn't know it at all. To be honest, I'm not a consumer of reality TV or that kind of concept. I usually watch other things. But then when I went to check it out, I realized that in the first part, the pods, it's a social experiment. It's not really reality TV. You're only filmed in, let's say, agreed upon settings, meaning you're filmed when you're in the pods on dates and also when you're in the lounge with for me, with the guys. So you don't have that aspect where it's at the foot of the bed or you're eating. It's really, so yeah, it's a social experiment. So how did I experience this? With ups and downs, honestly, because it's an experience that's extremely intense emotionally. I'm someone who's pretty sensitive about that. So there was a multiplying effect because everything was really well designed to trigger those emotions. So it was cleverly done in that regard. That is, even though I came into the experience very naively, telling myself, I'll see what it's like and just go with the flow. In the end, they're really good at guiding you and to lead you exactly where they want you to go, which is, of course, to find love. So, did I have a good experience? Yes and no. Yes and no, yeah, because I met some amazing people. There are people who will really be part of my life now and hopefully for many years to come. Afterwards, well, there were some things I didn't necessarily agree with. I also discovered the behind the scenes of a production and all the constraints that come with it. So it's not really my world, but I'm really glad I got to see behind the curtain.
Has this experience changed your view of relationships?
In a way, yes. First of all, because the experience highlighted certain things that are important for a stable relationship. Whereas before, even before I started using social media to hook up, like Tinder and so on, before I had always met my girlfriends in real life. That is, at parties, through meeting people. It had always happened, let's say, very naturally. Here, actually, in this experience where you don't see the person, so you don't judge their looks right away, it really shows you that your compatibility is based on much deeper topics. So clearly, for me, it made an impact in the sense that now I don't look for the same things in potential partners because I've had this experience. So yes, honestly, it really has a influence, a big impact.
That's beautiful. Can you just, because I'm always curious to know how each person experienced it, since you made it to the reveal and we all know how intense that moment was, can you tell us how you felt at that exact moment when, after dating someone for I don't know how many days, you have to get down on one knee in front of them even though you've never seen them before?
It was completely unreal. Honestly, when I first entered this experience, I was convinced I wouldn't find anyone. So I did it with total sincerity. And so the process still led me to propose to get down on one knee, just like you said. Even though that's something I never really saw myself doing in real life. In my previous relationships, for example, I really had not exactly pressure, but at least there was a real desire from my former partners for me to propose to them, which never actually happened. But here, I don't know, it felt pretty natural to me because once again, the experience leads you there. You have to remember that we're in a bubble for almost 2 weeks where everyone around you is there for the same reasons. So there's a kind of excitement that happens, sometimes even a certain pressure. So when I did it, I kind of felt like I was outside myself. I thought, where am I really? Still, I'm not unhappy that I did it. After the reveal, yeah, it's still there. Let's say it's kind of the grand finale. You get hit with an emotional rush that's incredibly intense. No one except those who shared the experience, like you and me, can truly understand the intensity of that moment because it's really outside of time. There's nothing else like it in terms of experience, in terms of what you go through. And even, my closest friends who know me really well or my family, I can share it with them. I can tell them about it. But you still feel there's a big barrier between what I'm telling them and what they imagine. And above all, they don't realize just how powerful it is. It's
Interesting.
Yeah, and then of course there are the cameras, there are other people present. Even though I always tried not to form an idea of the person physically, you just can't help it. So inevitably when the doors open, it's a shock. Yeah, it's a shock. And
above all, we kind of have this performer side to us, actually. That is, we have to arrive with good timing, to kneel down, propose to her, not mess it up, say the right words. She has to say yes. We have to
make a good impression on her there.
There is a lot of pressure. Honestly, the first 30 seconds of this thing are something else because you have to try to do everything right. You only get one shot. So that's what perfection is.
Yeah, it's true that I have to admit I was really impressed. She's the person I met who really took the lead because I made the mistake of looking to the right, and that's where the whole staff was actually. And I had been told, don't look to the right. And of course, I looked to the right. It's true that I kind of lost my composure. I mean, I didn't stutter or anything like that. But honestly, I was really blown away by the whole thing. And then the woman I had in front of me, she really has an aura, a real presence. So automatically I was in baby fox mode. But definitely, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing all of that with us. Yeah, my pleasure.
Now we can move on to today's topic. Yeah, so even when he's in love, a man can run away. And in your opinion, what are the 3 behaviors that make a man run away?
Well, I'm going to talk about my own experience. I'm not going to generalize. So yes, I am a man, but I can't speak for all men. Same here, I'm also going to talk about women, and it will also reflect my own experiences. So we shouldn't generalize. I'm not going to. When I say women, you should understand my past partners, and I'm not making a generalization. I just want to set the context because I also don't want to get slammed if I say something that doesn't apply to a lot of women.
We'll protect you, don't worry.
But yeah, so it's definitely true that I'm someone who tends to fall in love pretty easily, honestly, in the sense that I can really see the beauty in people very quickly. It's not that I judge people very easily, but let's say I have a very, very strong, very big appetite actually for reading people. So I can immediately tell if the person in front of me is driven, if they have passions. I instantly notice their qualities, their flaws, especially their qualities. So as a result, it's true that I tend to quickly find the beauty in someone, which has led me to fall in love pretty fast in my relationships. That is where I see friends struggling, and even after 6, 8, 9 months or more, they still don't have that spark. For me, it actually sparked very quickly in almost all of my relationships. Yeah, in pretty much all my relationships. There are things actually that make you run away. There's insecurity. That's really the first thing. Insecurity, emotions to me all have a scent, and insecurity smells like gasoline. It's a really strong smell. So when you go to fill up your tank and you spill a little bit of gasoline, it makes your head spin.
What bothers me about insecurity is the constant need for validation from others when you're with someone. That is to say, there are girls who are totally insecure, and so they seek validation, whether it's through their behavior on social media, at parties, or whatever, not necessarily wanting to hurt you, but that's just not it.
That's exactly where I was going with this. Insecurity, to begin with, tends to make your partner project, at least in her mind, everything that could go wrong in a relationship. And generally in life, when you project things, they end up happening. You know, when you're really afraid of having a car accident or when you're really afraid of falling on a ski slope, that's usually when it happens. That's actually why when you're learning to drive, they tell you, especially not to look at the point of impact, because if you look at it, you'll go there. It's the same with feelings. It's the same in relationships. If you're only focused on something that could potentially happen, you're going to make it happen. So, if you will, insecurity is really one of the first things. That is to say, in my relationship, I really tend to put the other person on a pedestal, even if they feel they can't or aren't worthy of being put on a pedestal. Because for me, that's what a relationship is supposed to bring. It's like a super solid foundation where you actually put yourself above the rest of the world. From that moment on, if the person still feels insecure, it means there's actually a lack of trust, both in themselves and in me. Because what I tell them, they won't believe, even though I'm very sincere when I talk to them about their qualities, when I show them everything they do that so few people are capable of doing. So everything that highlights her and everything that actually makes her a different person. So it's true that it's very difficult because you feel like you're swimming against the current. And actually, after a while, you get exhausted. In the sense that I've already had relationships with people like that who really needed a lot of validation, who asked for a lot of support. And every time you thought you'd made progress on a very specific topic like self-confidence or starting a business, for example, as I told you, I've had a lot of companies. I've started many different ventures. Many of them failed. But that doesn't mean I won't try again in a year or two because I take on a project. And it's such a shame, really. I was in a relationship once with a girl who had gold in her hands. So in her PR job, she was clearly one of the best in Paris. And yet she really let her former bosses walk all over her just because she was missing that little push, you know, to cross over and become an entrepreneur. I'm not saying that's what broke us up, not at all. But let's just say it made the relationship really difficult to the point where you don't even feel credible in what you say anymore because it's obvious to the other person.
Actually, what you're saying really resonates with me. Have you ever walked away from a relationship despite having feelings?
Yes, but it wasn't because of insecurity. I walked away from a relationship where I was madly in love with the other person. But we had an age gap. There was a 5-year difference between us. So when I met her, she had just turned 18 and I was 23. So at first it wasn't a problem. But let's just say it was the time when I was coming back from Montreal, returning to Paris. And that was when I partied like crazy, you know. It's a time when you're shaping yourself, you're changing your life as a young adult. So obviously things don't evolve the same way at that age. Let's just say that at the very beginning it was fine because we met at a party, we partied a lot. I was also working a lot on the side, and so was she. But there came a point when the Parisian party scene, with all its pitfalls that, you know, alcohol, drugs, staying up late, showing up to work late because honestly your head is still in a fog the next day, well, thank you. It's fine for a while. It's really cool, you know. I don't regret doing it at all. Honestly, I'm really glad I experienced that period of my life too. But when you want to get out of it and the person in front of you is still fully into it, there's inevitably a big conflict. Basically, it's either you risk your physical and mental health or you keep going in a relationship that's going to destroy you.
In the end, would you say that when you're not on the same wavelength in life, it's a kind of behavior that can make you run away?
Let's say that if at some point you end up getting out of sync, and that's actually what happens to a lot of couples, especially those who end up divorcing, it's because we meet at a certain point in our lives, we grow, and that means your goals might change, your outlook on life might be different, and the experiences you've had both within your relationship and outside of it, since we're all unique individuals. It means that at some point you might not evolve in the same way. And actually, a lot of couples I see who divorce or separate after many years, it's because they've grown in different directions and haven't been able to realign around a shared vision. If you lose that vision, it's actually very difficult to move forward in your relationship because both of you will end up suffering. You won't develop properly. You'll feel a big void, whether it's emotional, friendly, or even familial. Basically, all aspects, all the areas of your life, they just won't be balanced anymore.
And for you, what makes you say, stop, I can't go on anymore?
It's very hard for me to say, stop, I can't go on, because in those moments, only the good memories come back to me. When you have those good memories in mind, you want to fight for them. And sometimes you end up fighting a bit against yourself too, because you know it's no longer good for you. You know you no longer fit the other person either. Typically, that's exactly what happened in my last relationship. I couldn't give the other person what they wanted anymore, and vice versa.
It's useless.
It doesn't serve any purpose anymore, yet you still hold on.
No, please. I was just thinking we actually did a little research on the 3 most common behaviors that make men run away. Tell me if you recognize yourself in this. First, there's control, excessive jealousy, lack of respect, and constant negativity.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Especially the last one. I was going to mention it too. I'm really sensitive to constant negativity once again. I have both HPs and they're really strong, really intense. So everything in my life comes with a huge multiplier effect.
You feel the emotions of
Family, mine, as well as those of others. For example, I lost my grandmother 2 years ago, and I spent almost every day at the hospital to be near her. It was already hard to be with her because you know she's going to pass away, but you also feel everything from all the other rooms, you know? You sense that distress, that fear of people who are going to die, sometimes alone because their family is far away, because they're the last ones really left on this planet. Constant negativity, I've actually experienced it in my childhood, and it's something that, in fact, I completely avoid in my adult life. So, once again, that doesn't mean I'm not open to criticism, but there's a difference between bringing up things that are actually fundamental, you know? And then constant criticism about things that honestly don't matter at all, they won't bring you anything. It's just negativity, like you said, that's always there. So actually, it's a kind of straitjacket you find yourself in, and you don't even dare to move or do anything anymore because you know you're going to get attacked. And
then you just shut down generally when you're constantly around people who are unhappy and who see everything in a negative light. At some point, you also start to feel like your own zest for life is fading and you just shut down.
yeah, that's it. So clearly, that's something that's really complicated for me. My very last relationship ended because of that. Honestly, because every time I did something, I got criticized. When I'm with someone who can barely cook pasta and I'm serving up a 2 Michelin star dish on the plate, I mean, you're not a food critic, you're not a culinary expert, just enjoy it, really. You're not.
The guy who cooks, you're just here to enjoy.
Staying on this theme of negativity, do you think emotional fatigue drives people away more than a lack of love?
That's a good question. Honestly, it's not easy to answer because in both cases, it could be a reason to leave. But I would say that, in fact, constant negativity would make me leave before a lack of love would. A lack of love can also be understood because the person in front of you might be going through tough times, and in fact, they're not available to give you love because either they don't feel good about themselves, or there's something in their close environment which you are a part of, but it's not necessarily your environment. For example, it could be family related, or it could be, you know, like if your partner's best friend is on the verge of suicide, your partner won't be 100% available for you, which is perfectly understandable. But so these are generally temporary states. Constant negativity, on the other hand, usually isn't temporary. It's a deep-seated nature, and generally it actually comes from unresolved traumas. So you really have this controlling mask that appears, and it makes things much, much more difficult. So it's true that nowadays, having someone who's a bit more naive, a bit of a hopeless romantic, actually suits me better because I still have a childlike spirit. I'm still amazed by things that, as adults, we usually get jaded about. I see it because I have little cousins who are 5 or 6 years old. I have a blast with them playing new games. For us, it was Pokemon. For them, it's other stuff. I think it's awesome when they show off their new toys. I have,
Seen your Pokemon cards?
yeah, Pokemon cards are a big part of my life too.
And if we talk a bit more about the topic of control and jealousy in relationships, do you think that having too much control inevitably ends up killing love?
Too much control, I would definitely say no. It can kill it, obviously. Afterwards, I've been in relationships where someone tried to control me, but when it comes to that, I'm like a gyroscope. If you put pressure on me from one side, I'll apply the same pressure from the other. So basically, I also show pretty quickly that I have my own freedom as an individual. So generally, I show it from the start, so it's either a hit or a miss. But when it works, it means there won't be that constant control either. I've lost my train of thought.
I can respond to what you're saying. Why do you think even a man in love ends up pulling away if he's being smothered?
Because in fact, you're no longer yourself. You're no longer yourself if you're being smothered. By definition, you can't grow. A fruit or a flower that's being smothered doesn't develop well, and it's the same for a human being. If you have someone who stifles your growth, it's already because they're afraid of the person you could become. And in fact, you might end up out of their league, if I can put it that way. But basically, it's often fears like that which are at play when you meet and you're on an equal footing. Let's say in terms of social or professional success, even socially, if one of you starts to really take center stage, it's often very hard for the other partner to handle because they start thinking, wait, now I can't keep up, or I won't be attractive to them anymore. But that's not the case at all. On the contrary, if she's where she is, it's also thanks to her partner. So she has a lot to take credit for in that. It's often hard to deal with. So again, being aligned on these kinds of ambition criteria is important. If you have huge ambitions and your partner doesn't, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be difficult in the medium and long term. In the short term, it might work, but here we're really talking about a life partner, so it's going to be complicated. As for jealousy, I've never really experienced it much because I truly trust my partners. But like everyone, it can happen to be cheated on, if that's what we're talking about. But for me, I have a very particular view, which is that human beings aren't actually wired to have only one sexual partner for their entire life. That's very different from a life partner, you see. So you get to the essentials. Yeah, exactly. I've already had, let's say, open relationships where we brought other people into our couple, Always, how do you say, with both of us controlling what was happening, you see. It never bothered me. And for me, honestly, it's much less serious. If you violate my privacy, if you violate, I don't know, like my notebook where I write my thoughts, that's not cool, My computer, really not cool at all.
I actually think that's the future, that kind of relationship.
Open relationships?
Yeah. With the new generation, the fact that you can constantly swipe, will the new generation want to focus on just one person and build something together and get through tough times? Or on the contrary, because even their brains are wired to have everything instantly and to change very quickly, will they not want that?
I mean, both are possible. By the way, it's funny. When you look at the generations younger than us, they're actually much more religious in terms of faith. They drink a lot less alcohol. They also have fewer partners than our generations. So I would have answered yes, that's probably the future. But actually, the numbers and statistics show the opposite. So am I really an outlier in the way I see things? Maybe. Well, let's say I don't necessarily need an open relationship to feel fulfilled with my partner. But if it's a mutual need, let's talk about it. I'm open to discussion. But again, it has to be done with respect. It has to be within a framework. And actually, that framework is something you and the other person set together, and it will be different each time. You see, I wouldn't necessarily have the same framework with each potential partner.
And since you're talking about respect, the third thing that we've identified as affecting men more is a lack of respect. In your opinion, do men have a hard time tolerating repeated little criticisms?
Oh yes, absolutely. I'm really sensitive to that. Really? Oh, I hate it. I really hate it. Especially when it's about things that, honestly, if you just let them go, it won't change your life. I'm not saying you shouldn't criticize or bring up issues in your relationship if they're things that really weigh on you or hurt you, But typically, if I put something somewhere other than where it's supposed to be because I was rushing to get ready for work, and then I get scolded for that, and to be honest, it just feels infantilizing. So, like I said, it's something I suffered from as a kid, and I absolutely don't want it in my adult life anymore. So for me, right away, that's a huge, huge, huge red flag. And actually, very quickly, it creates a complete sense of not caring at all, meaning that, well, if you react like that, I might even start playing with it. I might end up becoming spiteful, like I'll purposely leave things in the wrong place because I've already told you it annoys me when you keep pointing it out all the time, especially since I'm not lazy, like I'm not just lying on the couch doing nothing. I help with the cleaning, I help with the shopping, and most of the time I'm the one who cooks.
So you'd rather leave than lose your self-respect in this relationship?
Yes, absolutely, even though it's really hard to leave. I mean, for me, leaving is complicated because at that point I actually feel the other person's distress. And above all, I tend to keep things to myself. Like I told you, since I don't like criticism, I really try to avoid making any... Honestly, I really try not to criticize. Basically, I just keep it to myself. If there's something I don't like, I swallow my words, and then I just go ahead and do it. For example, if I come into a kitchen that's filthy before I start cooking, it really pisses me off to have to clean everything before I can even get to work, especially since I already have a ton of things to do anyway, like cleaning everything up.
But I'm not going to be the one who says, hey, listen, sweetheart, clean the kitchen for me so I can work. No, I'll just suck it up, I'll do it, and I won't even mention it. So actually, usually when someone brings me these little details, I keep a record of them because I have an elephant's memory.
So, you see, when a conflict comes up over little things like that, I'll bring up the whole history. So the other person actually is completely distressed because they're thinking, wait, you kept all that to yourself? It's pointless. It was pointless, and above all, it actually makes our relationship smoother because little bumps like that happen everywhere in life, and I try to avoid having them in my relationship.
That's really interesting what you're telling us. So first of all, thank you for opening up like this.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Let's move on to the little debate. So I'm going to ask us some questions, and the three of us will be able to share our opinions.
Maybe add a woman's perspective. Yeah.
Of course, that's super interesting.
So the first question is, do women drive people away without realizing it just because of insecurity?
Yes, in my opinion, women do drive people away because of insecurity, in the sense that when you have an insecurity, you end up projecting it onto others. For example, I've been cheated on so many times, I've lost count. If I notice even the slightest thing that triggers my insecurity, I'm going to bother you about it so that you reassure me. But in the end, by constantly wanting you to reassure me, it ends up having the opposite effect, where you get fed up with my insecurity. So.
Yes. But if the person actually shows you, through their words and actions, that there is truly no longer any reason at all to feel insecure, and consistently behaves accordingly over time, then I think that can reassure you. But the problem is that the slightest little flaw or the tiniest grain of sand in the gears can make that insecurity come back pretty quickly.
The problem with insecurities is that if you still have one, it means you haven't worked on it yet. And so, if you haven't worked on it, no matter how much you try to reassure me from A to Z, if I haven't done the work on myself, no matter what you say, I'll just think, yeah, others told me the same things and they were lying. So I think insecurity only goes away if you've worked on it. If you haven't worked on it, it's complicated.
Yes, very complicated. And actually, it creates an inception in the sense that unconsciously, you plant in your partner's mind the very idea of what you don't want. And since you keep feeding it because it keeps coming up, you end up making it happen. That's what I was telling you earlier. When you project a fear in an exaggerated way, you end up making it real. Human beings, or rather the human mind, is brilliant at that, which is why you really have to learn to control it because it has phenomenal power.
There are also situations where the person in front of us actually shows us their insecurities. Intimacy, for example. They tell us that they're insecure. The guy, because we're using the guy-girl example, should also ask questions. Why do you feel this insecurity? Try to understand that phase. But the person in that situation needs to be able to express it, and that's already hard. Some people can't express it. And above all, they can't give their partner solutions. On another podcast, we talked about a guy who goes out and his girlfriend gets super stressed because every time his friends have gone out, things have gone badly. But she doesn't give the guy any solutions to actually address her insecurity. If you don't tell him that what would actually reassure you is a text when he arrives, a quick call during the evening, and a kiss when he gets home, if you don't express that, maybe he won't text you during the evening so as not to bother you, and then you'll end up imagining all sorts of things. So basic communication is what would solve this issue. And
in addition to communication, it's really like an instruction manual. We all have our own instruction manuals. If you manage to put into words what you expect, like you just said, everything goes much more smoothly. If it's a message you expect when you arrive, or if it's a photo to show that you're really with your friends, I honestly don't mind doing it. But I can't guess, no one is omniscient what you have in mind. On the other hand, if you tell me, here, I need this, I need that, thank you. They will reassure me. I'll give them to you, but obviously, actually, it's all in my best interest, really, so that I can give you exactly what you want. But I agree with you, actually. Usually we point out the problem, and even then we don't always point out the problem, so that's already a good step forward. But the next thing is, tell me exactly how you expect me to handle the problem, because in that case, it's easy.
By the way, to deal with the problem, I think I'm going to lock you in the basement.
That's one solution.
That's one solution. It's something that tells me at least you're there. I was about to say, what is the problem? I didn't understand anything. There you go. When you go out partying too much, you see, now I would say the only thing that reassures me when you go out partying is that you stay in your cap.
But he goes out partying in some fashionable caps, looking quite pleased with himself. Ah, no. She.
Is 3 points? I've had enough of you. Next question. Do men really explain why they leave, or do they just disappear without saying anything? Well, that's a tricky question. The question is it still common to leave without saying anything? I think so.
No, but do you tell the truth when you leave?
The truth, that's a matter of generational maturity, I think. So, guys who leave like that, who say they're going out to get bread and never come back, that only happened in the 80s. I'm going to
Get some milk.
That doesn't happen anymore. There you go. It's clear. But now, no.
Do you always tell the complete truth, or do you sometimes find truths that are simply easier and more comfortable to say? That
It really depends on the situation, but I think so. However, a boy who may have met another girl, or perhaps even another woman, may avoid telling his former sweetheart that, perhaps to spare her pain. I don't even know if it's the right solution, honestly, I have no idea. No,
Me, I'm like you, meaning I try to sugarcoat things because honestly, it's already a tough moment, so there's no point in being vindictive or trying to push the other person down even more. She's already taking a huge hit, at that moment. Yes, exactly. But on the other hand, if you come looking for answers after it's over, then I'll be very honest and tell you exactly why. And usually that ends up hurting people even more every time. Yes, but actually,
you end up hurting them more by trying to sugarcoat the truth when by telling the truth, we've already talked about this. For example, let me give you an example from my own experience, my very long relationship. He left, but he kept being a bit ambiguous because he didn't want to hurt me and so on. That made it 100 times worse. If he had cut things off abruptly, it would have hurt in the moment. But it would have been so much better in the long run. And
that's different.
in this case, the guy stayed a bit greedy. No.
beyond that, he didn't tell me that he had cheated on me. He refused to tell me the truth about why and how he
Was leaving. Yes, but in this case, he stayed a bit close to you. He stayed ambiguous.
It's not I'm leaving you, but one day I have.
the idea. Even if it's not him, in our situation, anyone would leave. But he
He didn't find it enough.
someone else who leaves but doesn't tell you why. Why he disappears a bit, saying he's not in love anymore, he leaves, etc. Is that
A good reason?
Yes, it's a good reason, even though it's not the real reason. Let's imagine because, for example, you've already experienced it. Someone leaves saying they're not in love anymore, when in fact there's actually someone else involved. And if he doesn't tell you, you'll think you have to rekindle his feelings. We women are really good at that. We love to make up stories in our heads and tell ourselves, no, but I'll manage to change him. Whereas if the person tells you,
Do you also want to? Most of the time, I've still managed to keep good relationships with my exes. I don't want every time they leave my life, especially when they've been a part of it for a while, to just cut them off. If you're really harsh like that, for me, it's just extra pain where there doesn't need to be any. But again, that's different from cutting things off by saying it's over. You don't give all the reasons because actually you're also protecting the other person without giving them false hope about possibly getting back together. On that point, you have to be clear with yourself. It's
a bit like, sorry to bring this up again, but the guy wasn't clear. He kept seeing you and so on. That's not cool. There you go. That's not cool. That's not cool, you see. But if you stop things abruptly by saying, listen, this isn't working because I don't like this, I don't like that, or whatever, I don't know. Whereas,
does that work? Give me your example, does that work? When you try to break things off with someone, if you're not completely blunt, give me your example. Did it work with you? Yes. See, that's how it doesn't work.
Did it work for me? Anyway, at some point, you really have to cut ties for quite a long period of time because actually you have to let the emotional dust settle because as long as it's still up in the air, nothing good will come of it. But you need to have a clean break. That's it. Even if you come back later, that's not a problem. But if you've been with someone for 5 or 6 years and you don't give it 6 months, 6 to 9 months, there's no exact timing. It depends on the situation. But if you don't have that period where you cut everything off, absolutely everything, yeah, it's tough.
Do you think men and women run away for the same reasons?
No, women, in my opinion, don't have the... It takes us a while to leave, for starters. We think, and then we We test, we tell you things,
Once it's over,
it's over. But as a result, I think we don't run away for the same reasons. A man, you don't have to run away for the same reasons.
Don't think so either. Also, we don't have the same way of communicating. So maybe we don't experience the same difficulties in a relationship as a woman would. We're still very different. We don't think in the same way at all. We have types of intelligence that are wired differently. A guy tends to think much more sequentially, you see, whereas a woman thinks in a branching way right away. You don't even make connections the same way to begin with. And especially for us as guys, we don't learn to communicate about our feelings and experiences in the same way, especially those of us born in the 90s. It's a bit different today, but there was still a very patriarchal aspect when we were kids, something that was instilled in us. My grandfather, it was like the grandmother would go to the kitchen and keep her mouth shut. That was the mindset of the 60s.
I agree. We're on the same page, but we didn't all communicate the same way, and we don't run away for the same reasons.
No, we don't run away for the same reasons.
But that raises another question. In your opinion, darling, why do men run away?
Why do men run away?
One reason or
One reason, but often it's because you don't let us have our peace. No, but it's true, you need something softer with. We analyze everything. You'll tell me something and I'll think, wait, if he said A, maybe it's B, C, D, E, F, G. Yeah. And so I start overthinking things and then I run away because I feel insecure since I've had time to imagine 75 different scenarios in 3 minutes. And you run away because precisely you want something simpler. When the person suits you and you're in love, as long as things are going well, you stay. But us, on the other hand, we make up 700,000 scenarios in our heads thinking, wait, he was out at a party, but I'm not sure.
That's something we've all experienced.
This text message doesn't mean at all what he said.
Actually, for us, it's much more straightforward. We said exactly what was on our mind. There are no hidden meanings. By the way, actually, you should never overanalyze what a guy says. Yes,
That's for sure, absolutely.
and you, man, why do you think women run away? So,
they run away when you don't give them a sense of security. That's super important for a woman. Whereas if a man feels insecure, it's not that big of a deal. It's less serious, I think. At least for me, when I felt insecure, it didn't make me run away. It hasn't happened often, but there are some women who manage to make me feel that way. It didn't make me run away at all. For a woman, if you don't give her that cocoon of security, whether it's emotional, financial, material, or family related, it's something that comes up in every aspect of how she envisions her life. That's why it's a major key. If you don't give her that, generally she'll leave, all right?
Do you agree? Yes. Okay, that's cool. So we're in agreement. Now we can move on to the solution and punchline part. Here, the answers are pretty short and impactful. Are you ready?
Yeah.
In your opinion, what can a woman do to avoid falling into those behaviors?
Keep it simple. Okay. Very good.
and if a man runs away, is it necessarily her fault, or is it sometimes just an excuse?
Sometimes it's just an excuse, yeah?
What's the best attitude to make a man stay in love over time?
Listen to his needs. Okay.
Ben's final punchline. Love isn't enough if...
If there's no fun,
Okay, yes,
That's true. Very
good. Thank you, Ben, for the interview.
it was my pleasure. Honestly, it was really great. I'm actually going to stay here. I love it.
Yeah, come back. All right, this is part 2 of the podcast.
And as for us, we'll see you next week. Feel free to let us know in the comments what you thought of this interview. And don't forget to follow our Instagrams to stay up to date with all the latest news. See you soon.
See you soon.